Hi and welcome to today's webcast with Rottneros. Today we got Lennart Eberleh, the CEO of the company, and also Pia Ohlson, the CFO of the company, presenting. My name is Martin Westerlund and I'm from Finwire.tv. If you have any questions for Lennart and Pia, you can ask them in the form that is located to the right. And with that said, I'll give you guys the stage.
Thank you very much, Martin, and hello everybody on this sunny Friday afternoon. And it feels like the sun is shining a little bit extra on Rottneros today as we have posted a Q3 result of more than 100 million Swedish kroners. With me, I have Pia Ohlson, who is our new CFO as of October 1st this year, and you will hear her voice in a little while. Looking at the highlights of the third quarter, the reason behind this fantastic earning improvements are pulp prices, which are on a record level. They have been so for quite a while and are now in the fourth consecutive month at $1,340 for NBSK in Europe. We've also refinanced the company, and thanks to the strong cash flow we had during the course of the year, have paid out a dividend to our shareholders, which has been decided on an extra shareholders meeting at the end of September. We're also very happy that we're now finally getting into the next phase for our packaging arm, molded fiber packaging. We've just signed a letter of intent with Arctic Paper to establish a new factory in Poland in order to scale up the capacity for our high quality packs. On a little bit more of a concern, of course, our current energy and especially electricity prices that have impacted our production during the quarter somewhat. But we will get back to that just in a little while. Looking at Rottneros, we are part of a circular bioeconomy. Our raw materials are coming from sustainably managed forests, and they are renewable. We have a very strong focus on niches. We have more than 50 qualities and tailor-made pulps for our customers, for main products. And we have worked with a very strong and solid balance sheet throughout the course of the last 5 years, on top of an important and quite heavy investment program and consecutive dividends that have been paid out. So a small but very focused niche player in the forest industry. Some words about the market and what has happened here during the course of the year. I mentioned during the introduction that we have seen record high prices. You see that here on the graph. The blue graph is the bleached sulfate kraft pulp in Europe, and the average price for the third quarter was $1,340. A little bit weaker development in Swedish kronor, as we have seen some minor strengthening of the Swedish krona during the course of the period. But as you can see, these are very high levels, and it has been a very rapid increase in pulp prices during the course of the year. If we look a bit more in detail and month by month, you see that the curve is flattening out there on the right-hand side on the top. As I've said, we're now 4 months in a row at $1,340, and they have been stable there in Europe. The bars on the bottom are the stock levels on a global level, and you see here that from the start of the year, those have increased. This is attributable both to a weaker demand in China, but also to some logistical issues that the world trade is experiencing during the course of the year. And there's quite some more pulp in transit, which has driven up stock levels as well. But we will look at the development of pulp just in a little while. Looking at our main market, Europe, Europe stands for some 70% of our sales. North America 14, and the remainder goes into Asia, not so much into China, but into other markets. This is how the paper and board production in Europe all in all looks like. Graphical paper still quite a big share of it. Container board by far the largest with 37%, and then various numbers of other paper and board applications. But more interesting maybe is to see how these have developed over the course of the year. These stats are lagging a bit, so this is for the first half year. And we can see here that there is still some influence by the pandemic, and you have to look into 2021, 2020, and then also 2019, maybe more as a general development. So if you can see here a positive development for graphical papers, that has to be seen on the very dramatic drop that was in 2020 as a consequence of the pandemic. So that looks good, and our customers are experiencing at least a good market. They are struggling with margins, not the least due to strong energy price development over the last recent weeks. But if you look into graphical papers over a longer period of time, this is still a downward trend that we can see. Board and packaging, on the other side, is still developing positively. And tissue here looks a bit weaker, but we have to remember that tissue last year during the pandemic and all this hoarding that went on had a very strong year. So also again here, the underlying trend still positive if you look into it over a longer period. So in general, pulp and paper has increased in Europe with 5%, which is of course very satisfactory for us as our customers experienced a very balanced and strong situation. If we look into the global pulp market, the statistics is at least up until August. We have seen some decline on a global level, a somewhat smaller decline for long fiber, slightly bigger decline for eucalyptus and short fiber, which is 4.8%. The long fiber is minus 3%. But on the other hand, we saw for UKP unbleached kraft pulp a very strong development with plus 26% during the course of the year so far. Europe has remained has seen rather big curtailments as a consequence both of a domestic decline in demand, but also lesser possibilities to export their products due to logistical restrictions. And that has, on the other hand, helped our clients in Europe to have seen a more stable market as the imports from China were not there anymore. So all in all, a slightly weaker market so far this year. If we look into how that looks for Rottneros, we have altered this chart. We've displayed these shares previously by tons. Now we look into it by sales. So this is turnover, and you can see here, excuse me, you can see here that the board and packaging is our largest area, followed by filters and printing and writing. Still a considerable large sector, but this is getting smaller and smaller. Electrotechnical applications, mainly or only supplied from us with UKP, has seen a very strong and stable demand during the course of this year, and also some of the other special applications. So a quite well-based portfolio of applications we sell all our products into, and this is the basis of us for being able to hold a quite large share of our sales in Europe, as well as being able to shift between applications depending on how they relatively perform against each others. This concludes the part of the market, and I now leave over the words to Pia. Pia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Lennart. And I'm very happy to present the numbers for you in this very positive Q3 report. So I will start off with doing the comparison on quarter versus last year. And if we see here, we had a very strong performance. We actually increased our EBIT versus last year by 97 million. And what is driving that profitability? Well, you can see here on the dark blue stable that price and currency is driving it with 147 million SEK. Also, we had a positive on the variable cost, and as you all know, we have a very good saw market, and that is actually giving us stable and good wood supply with lower prices. That is driving that on a positive 11 million. If we look at the volumes, we see a minus 39 million SEK, and that is because we have had maintenance stops in both our mills during September, and that has also put a negative on the fixed cost, minus 24 for the month. Depreciation is on a zero level, but on the other, it's our bioproducts that actually have gained a little bit up in the prices. So in total, 101 for EBIT on quarter three. And the next slide, we will talk about the period January, September versus last year. And we can see here that we started off with a 54 million, the same period last year. And we finished off this year with 209 in EBIT. So as the same as the quarter, we can see that the price is driving most of the increase in the profit. 133 is actually the price and the currency. And you all know that the currency actually got weak this period, so it's mostly the price. We can also see a positive in the variable cost. And you can imagine that it's the same as in the quarter three, and it is. It's the pulp prices that is actually lower. But we also have a positive on our electricity cost due to the hedging. And I will come back to that on a later slide. But we also have a minus here on the volume. And the volume minus 43 is also dependent on the maintenance stop in both our mills. For the fixed cost, we actually in quarter two had a positive development on the fixed cost. But if we look at the total for the whole year, it is also including the maintenance stop where we had a negative quarter three. So in total, minus 10 million for that. Depreciation, a small plus. And if we look at the other, we have a minus 4 for this period, January, September. And that is due to lower prices of our bioproducts during quarter one and quarter two. So we end up with 209 million. Let's talk about some electricity prices development. You can see here it's a graph showing the electricity prices and the development from January 2016 to up to September 2021. The blue graph line is actually showing the system price, and the light green one is showing the price area SE3. And you can see here that the last month, the electricity price, the spot price have actually skyrocketing high. We are happy to have really stable and effective hedging at this point. But as Lennart told you, we have actually had so high electricity prices in SE3 area that we have actually had to close our groundwood line for 8 days during quarter three. And if we look back to the year 2020, we can see that the green and the blue lines are diverting, and that is, when the system prices are not the same as the area SE3 prices, where we have the most, nearly 90% of our electricity is used in the area SE3. That means that at those month, our hedging were not as effective. So we have now been taking measures, we have been taking precautions, and we have now been doing some hedging in the SE3 area to prevent the risk from higher electricity cost. And we can go through the profit development. As you see here, 2020, that year was Actually, we had a huge impact from the pandemic, but as you see, we have a positive trend during 2021. And if we look at the quarter three development, we have a strong quarter, even though we had the maintenance stop. So a very positive development on the profit level. And we will take a look at the financing slide. As you know, we have been uh, actually um, taking up a new loan facility of 150 and 100 in a revolving credit instead of the old obligation loan of 400 million SEK on a high interest rate. So that is actually saving the company about 14 million SEK on an interest level. So we will take a look on how this is affecting the balance sheet. If we see here, we have the gray line, that is actually the equity versus asset ratio. And we can see that we have a very positive trend going here in the later 2021. And we are now on a 65, even though we had the dividend paying out in September, we're still strong. And we haven't had that development since 2017. So we have a very efficient and solid balance sheet, and we have a strong cash flow from the operations, and the net debt is still on a very low level. So next slide, please. We'll go through the long-term targets. It's actually divided into three blocks. We have financial targets, we have social targets, and environmental targets. And if we go through the financial targets first, we have a goal of dividend that will be paid out to the shareholders of 30 to 50% of the net result. And we have a goal of having an equity ratio over 50%. And we have a goal of the pulp production should increase with 3% every year. We also have a goal of the income, and that is that we will try to have a percentage over 10% of income coming from other than pulp in the year of 2023. If we move forward and look at the social targets of the safety, we have a zero vision, and the long-term injury frequency rate is going to be, we are looking forward and hoping that it's going to be better year on year. And also for a social target, we are looking forward to have a share of female in 2025 exceeding 30% of our employees. If we're looking at the environmental targets, we have a target in year 2030 to be a fossil-free production according to GHG Scope 1 and 2. And for the emission of cod per ton, we have an annual improvement as a goal. And that was my last slide. So I will hand the word over to Lennart to talk about the way forward.
Thank you, Pia. And if we're looking ahead, what are possibilities for forest-based sustainable products? You are familiar with those trends, and especially on the sustainability, I think we see now that things are moving forward quite quickly. We ourselves here are contributing by developing our molded fiber trays further. We have invested 15 years in developing technology and quality to come to the stage where we are. We are the first and so far only producer able to have a modified atmosphere pack on the basis of a molded fiber tray. And we're now signing a LOE in order to move ahead and starting a new production facility in Poland together with Aktier Paper. The advantage here is, of course, that there is the infrastructure in place. The Kostrin mill in Arctic Paper is 80 kilometers east of Berlin, so we are very close to a huge market with consumers, with very sustainable focused consumers, and also the access to good and cheap transportation, short transportation routes, and lower salary costs. So this will improve the calculation versus where we are running in Sweden, and of course also the increased number of trays. So the plan is to have this up and running by the end of 2023, and I think this will contribute quite tremendously to the developing of more sustainable packaging. If we then sum up the quarter, we saw a very strong earnings improvement. Comparing quarter three this year with last year, you have to bear in mind that this year we had the maintenance stops on both mills in its entirety in Rottneros mill, and it started by the end of the quarter in Vallvik and continued into October, whereas last year Vallvik was entirely in October and Rottneros was in May. So this is disrupting the comparison somewhat. We are facing higher energy prices as well as electricity prices. This is affecting, of course, the product calculation and our pricing possibilities towards the market, and it has forced us to take some downtime. But on the financial side, we see some headroom here as we have very effective hedgings in place. And we are now ready to take the next step for developing our packaging arm and really getting into a showcase factory to see what molded fiber packaging actually is able to provide to food producers, increasing shelf life without being in a frozen food chain. So this is a very exciting step going forward. With that, I round up and open up for questions. So back to Martin.
Thank you very much, Lennart and Pia, for that great presentation. And like I said, now it's time for some questions. We'll take the first one. Can you say something about the new potential EBITDA margin from the new fiber trays factory in Poland?
No, at this point, we cannot comment upon it. We haven't commented on packaging historically, and we will have to wait and see until it is up and running. It's early stage and it's just a letter of intent, but of course we are planning to go ahead, and when the picture becomes clearer, we will give some better guidance on that going forward.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the next question. What volumes of pulp do you expect in Q4 of 2021 and 2022?
We do not give a forward guidance on volumes or prices, so unfortunately that is nothing we can comment upon.
Okay, take the next question here. How do you think that the prices will develop in the future?
I would assume the question is regarding the pulp prices. And again, that is something that we will have very difficult to comment upon. A, because it's something nobody knows where it really is going, and B, we do unfortunately not give a guidance. If it would be concerning the pulp wood as an input cost into our production, we at least can see here the visibility, and the reason why we can see that with a better visibility is that price cycles are longer than when it comes to our sales price of pulp, is that they will remain stable during the rest of this year.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the next question. What does your plan look like when it comes to increase other revenues than pulp to over 10%?
That is a very good question, and that is certainly something that we put a lot of effort behind. One of the parts of that is, of course, the acquisition we had in Nyqvist Skog, which is raw material supply. One other is the packaging, Rottneros packaging, which we so far haven't singled out as it's a very minor one, but we believe the cooperation with Arctic Paper will give a larger contribution from packaging going forward. But also we do have other residues and side products from our mills that we're working with in the innovation and R&D team to see how we can commercialize on them and increase the value of each cubic meter of wood that we take in, and not just convert it into pulp, but make biological, sustainable products out of that, which are contributing to the change that we are as a society in to get away from fossil products.
Thank you very much for that question, and we'll take the next one. How are you going to achieve your goal of being fossil free by 2030?
If we look into the currently major production units we have Rottneros Mill, which is basically fossil free as of today. We have a biomass boiler that we have invested 40 million Swedish kroners in this year to increase its availability. We have a wastewater treatment with a biological and anaerobe cleaning step that is producing biogas. So once that is trimmed in, together with a biomass boiler, the on-site generated energy at Rottneros Mill is fossil free. Then we have electricity that we use to make mechanical pulp, and there we are working on to see how we can secure the guarantees of origin to have that electricity as being classified as fossil free. If we look at Vallvik Mill, also there, a chemical pulp mill, 50% of the raw material we take into the mill becomes a sellable product, 50% is energy. It's biogenetic based energy, so that is, as a definition, fossil free. The energy, the electricity we use is mostly produced on site itself. We have a self-sufficiency number of 85%. So our steps forward there are to increase that number by becoming more electricity efficient, as well as being able to produce more electricity ourselves. And then eliminating the remaining fossil fuels we use when there are production disturbances. That is the last part where we use oil, and those can be and will be replaced by bio oils. That would mean that we will have to look into storage tanks, cisterns, and also pumps, and make them fit for use with biofuels who are more corrosive than fossil-based fuels. So that's the clear way forward, and then we're now getting into action to put the investment program together to take those steps.
Okay, many thanks for the presentation, Lennart and Pia, and for the answers to our question. And a big thank you to all of you who will be following the presentation today. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.